Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nira Vishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarne Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Anantagati Vaishnav Vrinda Ke Jai. Yes, so devotees, we're continuing on with the 8th chapter, and at this point, well, of course, the subject matter, as you know, the subject matter is the name of the chapter is Attaining the Supreme, and it's essentially dealing with how to meet the time of death. Yeah, pretty serious subject matter. How to deal with the time of death. And, well, there were the 8 questions in the beginning of the chapter, the last of which was, how do the devotees, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So it's basically been explained. It's been explained. The essence is Mam Anusmara Yudhya Cha. This is basically the essence which was presented. Let's just see, was it verse 13? No, it wasn't. Mama Nuspara Yudhya Cha. Let's just see which verse. That was back a little. Mama Nuspara Yudhya Cha. Where would that be? It's verse 8, I think. It is indeed verse 7. Mamanusmara Yudhya Cha. Verse 7 says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara Yudhya Cha. Mayarpita mano buddhya mame vaishyasya samshaya. Thereafter, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. You will attain me without doubt. That's the essence. That's the essence. Although Lord Krishna is also in this chapter informing us really about other processes, other types of yoga and like that, by which people, yogis, are able to fix their minds on the Lord. We read about Sat Chakra Yoga last night. Not recommended, really not recommended, but at least we're informed of it. We can be aware, what is this? Which is useful, it's informative. Yes, and now we are going to go on. Last night we reached up to verse 19, if I remember correctly. Let me just check. It was 19, yes. 19 in verses 17, 18, and 19, Lord Krishna was basically explaining in a very broad and general sense across the whole material creation, even on the level of Lord Brahma, how the conditioned souls are entangled in this material world, and what happens to them. At the beginning of Brahma's day, they come out from Mahavishnu, and they are placed in the universes. They are revived again during the period of the devastation. Then the living entities enter Mahavishnu and go into a state. It's called susupti. Susupti means deep sleep. Deep sleep. A deep unconsciousness within Mahavishnu, and they stay there for an awfully long time. Really an awfully long time. Until Mahavishnu glances across the unmanifest material energy, the pradhan, again, and injects the living entities into the womb of material nature through his glance. Then from there they're placed in the universes, and then life in the material world as we know it goes on. It starts and then it goes on. So, yeah. So, and the living entities throughout all of this, they're basically helpless. We've already discussed quite a bit about the entanglement and how people are being forced by the modes, and how there's very limited freedom. Prabhupada would call it minute independence. Minute. When you've got a certain type of body, there's a little flexibility about what you can do, but it's only a little. If you're in a male human body, there are different things you can do, but you can't just do anything. An example which is given to illustrate the principle is the example of a person getting onto an aeroplane. And when you're on the aeroplane, you're going to a specific place, and of course you can move about to some degree on the aeroplane. You can do different things to some degree, very limited, but to some degree on the aeroplane. But you definitely can't just do what you like. If you become tired of it, just sitting there for hours, you can't tell them that, listen, let me out. I want to get off. Thank you very much. See you later. You're there. And what you do on the airplane may make, you may create a certain type of future by what you do on the airplane. If you meet someone in the same business, you may make some business deal. So after the flight, you become more wealthy through business dealings with that person. Or you may do something bad, and then when the plane lands, you may get arrested and locked up. And, all different things like this can happen and do happen So there's some independence. You can do different things, but it's very limited. So similarly with our situations in these bodies on this planet. So in 17, 18, and 19, Lord Krishna was basically explaining about that when Brahma's day arrives again, when the living entities enter the material world again, the living entities come into being. Not exactly come into being, but they manifest again. And then when Brahma's night comes, they're helplessly annihilated. There's nothing they can do. And during the course of life, as life goes on, then there are different yugas and so on, different births, and in different species. And what can you do? It's very limited. So that's basically what's explained in 17, 18, and 19. Helplessly annihilated. So let's go on to 20, 21, and 22. These are very nice verses. Actually, these are two subsections. 17 to 19 and 20 to 22 are subsections of a greater section in chapter 8 titled Comparing the Spiritual and Material Worlds. So anyway, just for the last few minutes, we talked about what the material world's like. Now, let's hear from 20 to 22 what the spiritual world is like, and it's really different. So here we go, verse 20. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Oh, that's pretty amazing compared to the material world. 21. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. And 22. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he's present in his abode, he's all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. Well, that's encouraging, isn't it? Compared to the material world, helplessly annihilated, manifest, unmanifest. Whew. It's rough. It's rough. And we've been through it, devotees. We've been through it, and hopefully we've been through it enough to know that we don't want to carry on going through it. Krishna, please. So let's go through these verses individually, a little bit from their purports. So 20, yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. So Srila Prabhupada only gives very brief purport here, but we can note that here in this purport for verse 20, Prabhupada says, Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. So Krishna's superior energy, the spiritual energy, is Satchit Ananda, eternal. Chit means fully conscious, Ananda, full of bliss. This material world, how is it, devotees? Everything is temporary. Everything material is completely temporary, even down to a moment by moment level. Temporary. Constant state of change. Yes. So see the difference. What a difference. Just in that regard. Sat, eternity. The material world is asat, temporary. Yeah, so spiritual world is eternal. And chit, consciousness. Everyone in the spiritual world is fully conscious, at least of themselves and their situation, not of just everything, but of themselves and their situation. Therefore, there is no ignorance. Therefore, you don't need to go to school or university. What do you think? Students, school children, Shanae. Yeah. So yes, there is no ignorance. There's nothing material. Everyone is fully conscious, fully competent. Yeah. And then Ananda. Everyone is blissful. Everything is blissful. There is no such thing as things in the spiritual world. Everything, so to speak, everything is fully conscious. Even the ground, the rocks are fully conscious. There is no dull matter. Whereas here, everything is just dull matter. Even our bodies are dull matter. Just temporarily, they're energized and loaned consciousness for however long we're going to be in them. And then when that time is up, which is already prearranged, we will leave our bodies. The bodies will just drop dead, and that's it. And in the meantime, it's hard to really enjoy in this world. It's so hard to enjoy sense gratification. But in Krishna consciousness, even very small things, even while we're here in this world, even very small things can be very blissful. When, just as an example, when devotees would be in Prabhupada's presence, if Prabhupada ever just smiled to a devotee, the devotee would just be in ecstasy for the whole day, or maybe for days, or maybe for weeks. If Prabhupada expressed some appreciation of a devotee's service, that could be enough to empower the devotee for the rest of their life, knowing that in this way I can serve Prabhupada and Krishna, and my service will be accepted. It's like your ticket back to Godhead. Yes, so this world is, Krishna says, it's an unmanifest nature. What does unmanifest mean? It means it's not really visible or sort of tangible. You can't really touch it and hold it exactly on the material level. Yes, therefore it's not really manifest materially, because it's spiritual. It's of a different nature. And what is the nature? It's eternal and is transcendental to this sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest matter. Yeah, this matter, material situation, which is in constant flux. So it's eternal, we mentioned that, and it's transcendental. Transcendental means not just different from, like if you speak one language, someone else doesn't, they speak a different language. So if you come together, you're kind of in different worlds, even though you're together. So, but transcendental means completely above and beyond. Of course, we know that the soul is within the material body. That we know. But still, the soul is transcendental, is of a completely different nature than matter, than the material body. And it's just through attachment, it's like a psychological phenomenon, that the soul becomes entangled. But when we progress in devotional service and we start becoming free from attachment, then you start to see, actually I'm different. I'm not just part of this. I have a different nature. Yes, above and beyond the limitations of matter. And as such, being eternal, of course, when all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. And 21, that which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. So the Vedantists, generally the Vedantists are impersonal, but anyway, that's all right under the circumstances. Different groups of people, not just the Vedantists, describe Krishna's abode. I mean, the devotees do, and many karma yogis do also. Describe it as unmanifest. As we said, it can't appear, not it can't, but it doesn't appear to the material senses. It can't be perceived materially. Therefore, it can be called unmanifest. And it's infallible. It's infallible. Life in this world, when you're on the material platform, it's extremely fallible. You can go down at any moment. And at every moment, someone goes down. And we will all go down sooner or later. There's no doubt about that. And it's the supreme destination. And we saw this a few verses ago. Having attained it, one never returns. Krishna says, that is my supreme abode. We read that in verse 16 also. In verse 16, one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So there you've got two statements, just a few verses apart. And it's a very important part of Krishna consciousness. It's there in chapter 4, verse 9, famous verse which we referred to on a number of occasions, very foundational. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So these are just three places in which the same point is made, that if you go back to Goloka Vrindavan, even if you just go back to Vaikuntha, then you will never take birth again in this material world. I'm sure you're well aware that devotees have expressed doubt even, or questioned, is it really like that, in different ways. Is it really that if we go back to Godhead, we'll never take birth again? We get this type of question from time to time. Many times I've been asked that over the years. But here Krishna says it himself personally, directly, at least 3 times. And, well, by standards of Vedic grammar and Vedic logic, if something is stated 3 times, it must be taken to be that's totally confirmed. There's no question, maybe, probably, something like that. It's like that. It's like that. So Krishna, you can't really ask Krishna to be much more emphatic than that. And therefore, basically, it would be a very good idea just to leave it at that and stop worrying about it. Anyway, here we are, we're in verse 21 again. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport gives a beautiful description of Goloka Vrindavan. Let's read, what shall we read? Let's at least read some of it. That the supreme abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is described in Brahma Samhita as Chintamani Dham, a place where all desires are fulfilled. The supreme abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, is full of palaces made of touchstone. There are also trees called desire trees that supply any type of eatable upon demand. And it's not just eatables. They supply eatables. They supply drinkables. They supply clothes. They supply jewelry. They supply anything. Yeah, they're desire trees. And there are cows known as Sarabi cows, which supply a limitless supply of milk and other things also. In this abode, the Lord is served by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune, Lakshmis, and he's called Govinda, the primal Lord, and the cause of all causes. The Lord is accustomed to blow his flute. His transcendental form is the most attractive in all the worlds. His eyes are like lotus petals, and the color of his body is like the color of clouds. He is so attractive that his beauty excels that of thousands of cupids. He wears saffron cloth, a garland around his neck, and a peacock feather in his hair. In the Bhagavad Gita, right here for that matter, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives only a small hint, right here, of his personal abode, Goloka Vrindavan, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. A vivid description is given in the Brahma Samhita. Okay. Yeah. And there's even a replica, sort of a replica. Vrindavan on this planet, although it does have a covering and, can be. I mean, if you're in Krishna consciousness, you can have really wonderful spiritual experience in Vrindavan and feel the transcendental nature there. But it's also possible to become affected by the material covering. So we go on to verse 22. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he's present in his abode, he's all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. So again, devotees, Srila Prabhupada refers to Brahma Samhita. Again, he refers to Brahma Samhita and the beautiful description of the beautiful nature of Goloka Vrindavan, and how Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Sri Giri Govardhan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, and how it's so much nicer than living here on this material level. Let me just read a couple of verses, two of my, actually they're just about my favorite verses. They're among my favorite verses of all. They're from Brahma Samhita, and they are, what are they? Well, they're two verses. Actually, they're not really two verses. They're one verse. They're one verse, and they are verse 56, but it's divided up into like two verses, you could say. Okay, so anyway, let me just read these. They are just too beautiful. I enjoy singing them. I will not sing them now, I'll just speak them. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpa Taravo Druma Bhumis Chintamani Gana Maitoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanamapi Vangsi Priya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapi Tadasvadyam Apicha. Let me just sing the next part. Bear with me. I'm not such a hot singer. Sayatra Shirabdi Sravati Sura Bibhyascha Sumahan Nimesha Dakyo Vavrajatina Hiatrapi Samaya Bhaje Sweta Dvipam Tamahamiha Golokam Itiyam Vedantaste Santa Shiti Vira Lacharakati Paye. Such beautiful verses, or beautiful verse. Okay, let me read the translation. It's verse 56 of Brahma Samhita. I worship that transcendental seat known as Sweta Dweep, where, as loving consorts, the Lakshmis in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every step is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty. Where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there's eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away, even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka, only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. It's amazing. A couple of interesting little things. The supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty. I'm sure we don't eat them, but there's a taste, there's a mellow of sweet love and loving exchange which we taste and experience. And there's eternal, transcendental time. Who is ever present? Isn't that interesting? Not which is ever present or that is ever present, but who is ever present. What a place. What a place. Goloka Vrindavan Dham. And as the verse says, Bhaktya in the Sanskrit, Bhaktya labhyas twananyaya. Remember last night, if I remember correctly, last night, we referred to this word ananya. Ananya. Ananya bhakti means pure bhakti, totally uncontaminated. Anya meaning other, and ananya, ananya meaning no other. Only bhakti, pure devotional service. So Krishna is saying, Bhaktya labhyas twananyaya. We can only achieve the Lord, enter our relationship with the Lord by rendering unalloyed, pure devotional service. Like I said, we encounter this Ananya Bhakti term in one way or another, here and there in Bhagavad Gita, and we'll point out when we do. So, but that's the point. You can only go to Him, and you can only go to His place by Ananya Bhakti. Okay, so we move on. We move on. The next section is verse 23 to 28, and 28 is the last verse of the chapter, so we assume we'll finish the chapter tonight. And we call this section the supremacy of devotion for attaining the supreme. The supremacy of devotion in the sense that Lord Krishna here is going to present a couple of alternative methods, different ways by which you may maybe, either go back to Godhead or go to the spiritual platform, which could mean Brahman realization, could mean Paramatma realization, but something, they are transcendental. Brahman and Paramatma are transcendental. Although Goloka Vrindavan and Krishna as the original Supreme Lord Bhagavan, that's the last word and topmost word in transcendence. But there are other processes for trying and at least going to either Brahman or Paramatma. So Krishna now, the supremacy of devotion means we're going to compare. We're going to see some comparisons between a couple of other processes and devotional service for attaining the supreme. Right, so now there are two subsections here. Yes. The first subsection talks about the karmis, jnanis, and yogis, anyone other than the devotees, and how they have to go through difficulty to achieve, well, whatever they may achieve, whatever that may end up being, at the most Brahman or Paramatma generally, unless they get association and become devotees. So this is verses 23 to 26. And we call it, as a subsection, the karmis, jnanis, and yogis, other than bhakti yogis or devotees, have to worry about all these considerations. Verse 23 to verse 26. So let's read the verses first of all. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. 24. For those who know the Supreme Brahman, attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God, in the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. If you pass away under those circumstances, then you may attain Brahman in one way or another. 25. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. And 26. According to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns. So let's just briefly go through these. Again, this is just effectively for our information, really. And we do not apply these things. So basically the point is that there are 2, for karmis, jnanis, and many types of yogis, there are 2 times in which different conditions prevail at which you may die. One of them, there are different factors and different conditions which we just read, and we'll read them again. And they're considered to be conditions of light. And if you pass away at those times, you may go to Brahman. But the other conditions, the other times when the other conditions prevail, if you die at those times, you may go to the moon. But then you come back. And even going to the moon is not such a big deal, really. Okay, so let's read through a bit. 24. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God, in the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. In other words, you would have to make sure that you don't die, that you do die during these types of times. And then you may go to Brahman. So, it's very restricted. If you die, if you're a karmi, jnani, or some type of yogi, and you die when the moon is waxing, means when the moon is coming up to being full. If you die at that time, okay. But if you die when the moon is going down from full to no moon, sorry, you don't make it. Or the 6 months when the sun travels in the north means the northern summer, sort of whatever, May, June, July, August, September, that time. But during the southern summer, which we're going into now. If you die at that time, sorry, you don't make it. So you have to control when you die. Sure. Believe me, that's not easy. So Prabhupada doesn't get into it too much, but what he says, and it's the important thing, is that when fire, light, day, and the fortnight of the moon are mentioned, it is to be understood that over all of them there are various presiding deities who make arrangements for the passage of the soul. So in other words, that, well, actually, just to maybe make it more clear, this is all coming from Chandogya Upanishad, I mean the detail, and even Prabhupada actually, in the purport to verse 26, he very specifically says that. But let's just read the passage which talks about this from Chandogya Upanishad. On dying, such persons, whether they undergo cremation rites or not, go to the deity of light. Yeah. From the deity of light, they go to the deity of the day, because they're at an auspicious moment of the day, so they go to the deity of the day. From the deity of the day, they go to the deity of the waxing fortnight. There's a deity presiding over that period of the lunar month when the moon is coming up to being full again. From the deity of the waxing fortnight, they go to the deity of the 6 months leading to the summer solstice. From there they go to the deity of the year. From the deity of the year they go to the deity of the sun, then to the deity of the moon, and then to the deity of lightning. A non-human form takes them to Brahman. This is the path of the Devas, the path of Brahman. Yeah, Hare Krishna. You follow the idea. Then 25, the mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. So again, let's just read what Chandogya Upanishad says. The householders who perform sacrifices, social work, and charities go to the deity of smoke. From there they go to the deity of night. Then the deity of the waning fortnight, the deity of the 6 months leading to the winter solstice, but do not reach the deity of the year. From the winter solstice deity, they go to Pitriloka, and from there to ether, from ether to the deity of the moon, King Soma. They, listen to this, they become food for the deities, and the deities enjoy them. Having exhausted their punyas, means their pious reactions there, they then return to earth on the path. Okay. So, 26. I mean, there's not much more to be said about all of that. It's kind of self-explanatory. So 26, according to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns. And let's just have a look, see what Prabhupada says here. The same description of departure and return is quoted by Acharya Baladev Vijayabhushan from the Chandogya Upanishad, that's what we just read. 5th canto, chapter 10, verses 3 to 5. Those who are fruit of laborers and philosophical speculators from time immemorial are constantly coming and going. Actually, they do not attain ultimate salvation, for they do not surrender to Krishna. And now the last two verses, they're a separate subsection, which we, verses 27, 28, which we call, the devotees don't have to worry about these things. So let's read the two verses. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore be always fixed in devotion. And 28, last verse. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Very nice, very nice. So let's just have a look here. So 27, although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, well, now you have some idea, at least just a basic, simple idea. It involves the deities controlling these particular phenomena or times. Yeah. So, anyway, devotees know about so many things, actually. Devotees know about many things. But if they're really serious devotees, they don't worry about the other things. Some devotees do hatha yoga. Some teach hatha yoga to make a living. Even someone like me, I do exercise. I'm back on my exercise program. Oh, seriously. But I don't care about yoga. It's just to help with health for Krishna consciousness. So devotees know so many things, but they don't care about anything except bhakti, serving Krishna. So Prabhupada explains here that we shouldn't worry about these things. Prabhupada says that the devotee should be firmly established in Krishna consciousness and chant Hare Krishna. He should know that concern over either of these two paths is troublesome. The best way to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness is to be always dovetailed in his service. And this will make one's path to the spiritual kingdom safe, certain, and direct. Yeah. And Prabhupada concludes the purport. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore the devotee is not disturbed by these descriptions because he knows that his passage to the supreme abode is guaranteed by devotional service. Now we have a special question here related to this verse 27 for those of you doing Bhakti Shastri. And we will read from the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 6, 9, 40. Srimad Bhagavatam 6, 9, 40. In which it is said, purport, Prabhupada says, even while suffering in the midst of difficulties, devotees simply offer their prayers and service more enthusiastically. In this way, they become firmly fixed in devotional service and eligible to return home back to Godhead without a doubt. So, the question that you're going to have to answer is, what do devotees do when they're suffering difficulties? And by doing this, they become firmly fixed in devotional service, eligible to go back to Godhead. What do they do according to a verse, this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 6.940. So what do? And the correct answer is they simply offer their prayers and service more enthusiastically. Please note that. So here we are now concluding with verse 28. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So in mentioning all these other processes, Lord Krishna is referring to studying the Vedas, for example, karma kandya, not Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, but some materialistic part of the Vedas, undergoing austerities, not like observing Ekadasi, which is for bhakti, the mother of devotion, but just some mundane austerity. Giving charity doesn't mean giving to the deity, giving to the spiritual master or like that. It means just giving some charity to someone, a poor person, something like that. Pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities, well, philosophical means some type of mental speculation, and fruitive activities is just fruitive activities. So the devotee, by performing devotional service, by Krishna's mercy, if Krishna feels that any of these results may help the devotee, Krishna will see the devotee gets them. If he feels they won't help, he will not let the devotee get them. But then the devotee will also go back to Godhead, which these other people will definitely not do. So that's really important and really wonderful. So Prabhupada makes a number of comments. At the beginning of the purport he says, this verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Yeah. In the fourth paragraph, Prabhupada explains that we should learn the 7th and 8th chapters by hearing from devotees. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, etc., etc. So, and the last paragraph 5 emphasizes the same thing. We should understand Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. And Prabhupada concludes by saying, then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of attaining the Supreme. So we'll start chapter 9 tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.